Today we're going to be showing you how you can quickly create cinematic looking footage in Hitfilm 4 Express. So the first thing you're going to want to do is shoot your footage really nicely in the first place, because no matter how much you try and save it in post, it's always much better if you do shoot nice footage in the first place. But that's not what we're going to talk about in this video. Today we're going to be talking about making it cinematic in post. So the very first thing you can do is color correct and grade. Now I've got a whole long 10-minute video on that if you really want to know how to do that, but quickly there are some really cool ways you can do that. So the first thing to do is to add contrast. So there are two ways of doing this. You can use the brightness and contrast effect or the crush blacks and whites effect, both of which are pretty cool. I'm going to drag the crush blacks and whites effect on here. What you can do is you can go and crush your blacks right here and make it more contrasty like that, and also crush your whites. You need to make sure that you got contrast, but I don't ever really like seeing overblown highlights like this, which is where stuff gets to pure white and you can't salvage the information anymore. So I like keeping it at a decent level like that. Once you've added your contrast, then you can go and edit your colors. So one easy way to do this is to drag the color balance effect on right here. And what you can do is you can add some more contrast, but in different areas. So for example, in the shadows, if I add something, then I'll want to remove it in the highlights, and this way I can add contrast. So if I add a lot of red in the shadows, then I'm going to remove a lot of red in the in the highlights, and this way we get some contrast into our image. So a very popular one is to add blue into the shadows and to remove blue in the highlights. That makes for a pretty cool look. In this particular instance, I don't think it works quite so well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some red here, and I'm also going to remove some blue. So both at the same time. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to add some blue, and I'm going to remove some red. Now I think this is a bit extreme, so I'm just going to turn it down to something like this. And that way we've already made our video look that much more cinematic. One thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to add what's called a light flare. So I'm going to add a new plane, like so. I'm going to make it a black plane, and I'm just going to drag the light flares effect onto this layer. And a light flare is pretty much where you have a lot of light coming from one certain part in the video, and it creates a flare in the lens as light bounces off the different elements in your lens. And for some reason it's turned into a bit of a cinematic sort of thing. So you can change the type of lens flare. The default one looks pretty cool. There are also ones which I really like, such as digital blocks, which look really cool. But what you can do is go into your layer properties here, set the blend mode to something like add or screen, and you can position the flare wherever you want. Now I think that this is a pretty nice flare actually. I'm just going to position it around here. I'm really liking this digital blocks one. It looks really cool and really sci-fi like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop it there, going to make it a bit stronger, scale it up quite a bit. I really like my lens flares. And what you can do is you can go drag the hue, saturation and lightness effect onto your flare, and you can change the master hue shift to change it to a color that matches the scene. So I'm going to change it to be a sort of yellow like that. Now what you can do is to incorporate this into your grade as well. You can copy these effects, so I'm going to go and Command C on a Mac or Control C on a PC, copy those effects, go into a new grade layer and paste those effects. And what will happen is now those effects will be applied to all the different layers on the video. Now because of this flare, you'll see that it's lightened up this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my crush blacks and whites. I'm just going to crush my blacks a little bit more. So of course there are tons of other cool stuff which you can do to make your video look really cinematic. But we're just going to add a final step, and that's the letterbox. And what the letterbox does is it adds black bars onto your video which change the aspect ratio of it. And this is really great because a lot of film footage is shot in a wider aspect ratio. So you can use the letterbox to make it look more cinematic. And what you can even do is you can add it onto a new plane. So I'm going to make this a white plane actually. I'm going to drag my letterbox effect onto this plane. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set layer properties of this top plane to be darken. And what I can then do is I can move all of this stuff. So if I select all of these layers here, I can move them down a bit like so, and recompose my image based on these letterboxes as well. Thank you guys for watching this video anyways. I hope this helps you, and I hope that now your video footage looks much more cinematic. Thanks guys. See you later. Bye.